Mom, on the eve of my only daughter's wedding, she was standing behind me, looking down. Wow, you scared me. What's the matter? What happened? There's something I haven't told you. Mom. Wait a minute, what is that? Just a night that was supposed to be filled with happiness gradually got tainted with sorrow and hatred. My name is Anne. When I was 24, I married Davis, a senior colleague at my company, and we were blessed with a daughter, Bailey. I quit my job when we got married to focus on raising our child, and Davis was a wonderful family man who worked hard to provide for us. Our home was so bright and happy that neighbors often mentioned how blissful we seemed. But our everyday life shattered suddenly. It happened not long after Molly turned 5. Suddenly, Davis didn't return home from work. Even when I contacted his office, no one knew the reason, and it seemed he had started taking unexplained absences from the next day. I consulted with the in-laws and neighbors, but no one had any information that could hint at where he might have gone. Every day, I scoured the newspapers and news broadcasts, wondering if he had gotten involved in an accident or incident, but I found no clues. The kind-hearted Davis had completely disappeared. Losing my husband so suddenly was devastating, but I couldn't cry forever. I resumed work to support Allie and found myself raising her single-handedly. Sexy even at her young age. Allie seemed to understand the situation and actively began helping with household chores like cooking and cleaning. By the time she graduated from elementary school, she was even preparing my lunch, a responsibility that should not have fallen on her shoulders, but her help was genuinely a lifesaver. She's such a wonderful daughter. I wish her father could see her, wherever he is. Often muttering such things, I found myself talking to Davis's photo more often than not. Life wasn't easy, but Maylee and I leaned on each other, and she grew up quickly. In the blink of an eye, 20 years passed, and Maylee, now 25, was getting married. It's bittersweet to see her leave the nest, but seeing her happy face filled my heart with joy. I'm sorry. I wish your father could be here with you on your wedding day. On the night before her wedding. I sent this to her. Maylee gently shook her head with a smile. I'm really happy just to have you here. Mom. Actually, could you tell me some stories about Dad tonight? I want to hear more about him from your perspective. And so, Ellie and I found ourselves reminiscing about Davis. We pulled out a faded old album from the dresser, and as we flipped through the pages, we began to share the memories captured in each photo. This picture is from when you stood up for the first time. Your father was so moved, he was crying while taking this photo, you know. As we spoke, the happy days seemed to come back as if it was just yesterday. The memories of our family of 3, even though it was only for 5 years, came rushing back all at once. Finally, we reached the last page of the album. It contained photographs from my wedding with Davis. It was a group picture taken with friends, and it seemed like I could hear the joyous laughter from that time. Wow! This is from your wedding, isn't it? Mom, You look so cute in your wedding dress. You'll be dressing up like this very soon, won't you? We'll make sure to take beautiful pictures, okay? Ali was initially enchanted by my photo, but her expression suddenly turned serious. Wait, hold on. Ismaili took the album and scrutinized the photo intensely, as if trying to dig into it. Her intense gaze surprised me a bit. Why are you staring at the wedding photo so intensely? It's this person. I recognize them, but who are they? Ali said, tilting her head, pointing at one individual. That person was a woman doing a peace sign at the corner of the group photo. Hearing that, I involuntarily furrowed my brows for a moment. Her name was Betty, a friend invited by Davis and also his childhood friend. I'd only met her at the wedding, but her impression was so strong that I clearly remember her. Betty stood out, but not in a good way. She was excessively affectionate with my husband, touching his hand and leaning on his shoulder right in front of me, the bride. Davis, you look so damn good in that suit. To me, I wish I was the one marrying you. In response to her openly saying such things in front of me, both I and the others around seemed quite taken aback. Yet amidst this, only Davis seemed to be enjoying it, smiling sheepishly. Hey, don't get all touchy-feely during the wedding, will ya? Seriously, you've always been too close for comfort. Do that kind of stuff where no one can see you. It's embarrassing, isn't it? Watching the two of them, I felt a connection that transcended their childhood friendship. However, bringing it up during the wedding would only create an unpleasant atmosphere. So at that time, I swallowed all the things I wanted to say and kept forcing a smile. Asked by my daughter about Betty, the unpleasant memories from that time resurfaced, causing a feeling of unease deep within my chest. Moreover, you weren't even born at that time. I haven't met her at all since the wedding. You shouldn't know her. Despite what I said, my daughter seemed convinced of something. No, I'm sure. I've met her. I felt an eerie atmosphere and swallowed hard. Where exactly? At home. In this house. She came over to visit several times. The shock left me breathless. I wanted to laugh it off, telling her to stop joking around, but my daughter's expression was utterly serious. I was left speechless, unable to find the words. Didn't Dad tell you about it? Hear what? It can't be serious. Betty came to our house when? I remember it being around the time Dad disappeared. That thing when you weren't at home, it's a distant memory, but I clearly remember this face. If what my daughter is saying is true, it would mean that my husband had invited Betty to our home. Furthermore, considering he didn't tell me anything, it was clear that it wasn't a wholesome invitation. Given Betty's behavior during the wedding, I could easily imagine this. I started to feel a suspicion I had never felt before, my breath becoming shallow. I wanted to leave the house and start investigating my husband right away, but tomorrow is my daughter's wedding. I held back my impatient feelings and gently closed the photo album. Let's put aside the matter about your father for now. Tomorrow is your big day after all. But Mom, this must be important for you, right? Maybe we should investigate more about Dad. Extra opponents of Team Theo. The most important thing for me right now is to witness my only daughter's wedding. But once that's over, would you help me with this? At my words, my daughter nodded. The next day, my daughter's wedding went off splendidly. Comparing to the old times, I was most relieved not to see any malicious people like Betty around. I want her to be happy from now on. And I began to harbor unforgiving feelings towards Davis, who had troubled such a wonderful daughter since her childhood. Actually, but since I had worried about being involved in some incident, but perhaps I had been betrayed instead. Wanting to know the truth, I later visited a detective agency with my daughter to request an investigation into my husband. The results of the investigation confirmed the worst-case scenario. Davis was still living a happy life. Moreover, he was cohabiting with the Betty my daughter pointed out in the album, and they even had a child who was now in high school. I couldn't hide my anger at the fact that he had built a completely separate family. But above all, I couldn't forgive that he was still living with the child from his affair, putting aside our daughter. I wanted to confront my husband right away, but first, I decided to move out of our house. The Terriot was the house that I had protected so that he wouldn't be homeless when he came back someday, but things had changed now. I had my daughter and her husband help me, and we decided to dispose of all Davis's belongings. I shipped my belongings to a rented room. He rented a room in advance, leaving the house completely empty. Of course, I threw all the photographs of my husband into a garbage bag. I even tore the pictures from our wedding, the event that triggered the uncovering of his affair, from the album, and crumpled them up before throwing them away. After losing everything, I stormed into the apartment where Betty and Davis were living. When I rang the doorbell, the man who had been missing for 20 years casually appeared. Particularly to the cordon. It was so easy to find the man I couldn't find no matter how hard I looked, that I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. It's been a long time, hasn't it? My daughter has grown up so much, but the kids around here have grown quite a bit too, haven't they? And why are you here? I took my husband to a neighborhood restaurant and had Betty message to join us. Betty, who arrived late, was smiling cheekily and brazenly, ordered a hamburger, despite probably having heard the situation from Davis beforehand. Well, if it isn't the pitiful abandoned wife. You look so tired. I recognized you right away because you've always had that unimpressive face. Instead of showing any remorse, Betty draped her arm around Davis's, looking triumphant. Even Davis, who had been hesitant until now, seemed to feel more at ease, thinking he had gained the upper hand since Betty arrived. What do you want with me now? I've built a happy family here. You're not planning to make my family suffer just because you've had a hard time, are you? Holding back tears was all I could manage upon hearing Davis's words. If you care so much about your current family, why did you abandon me and our daughter so easily? I raised my voice, and my husband's eyes widened in surprise. However, he quickly smirked and looked at Betty before responding. Because on our wedding day, I met Betty again and realized how cute she still was. It felt like fate, reuniting with such a cute childhood friend, you know? But for such a ridiculous reason. And since having a child, you gained weight, haven't you? And became so unsightly. In contrast, Betty remained cute. Switching to her was definitely the right decision. You've aged, and I couldn't bear living with someone like you. I no longer felt like talking to Davis, who stated that without hesitation, that no matter what I said, nothing would get through this guy. So, I proceeded to demand compensation for distress from both Davis and Betty. At this, Betty leaned forward with wide eyes. Compensation? Hold on a minute. This is a hassle. You mean to say Davis, who has been missing for 20 years, and you haven't even gone through the divorce procedures? I'd always thought he would come back someday, so I never removed him from my family register. I never thought it would come in handy this way. Upon hearing my words, Betty shook off Davis's arm and began shouting angrily. I went along with it because Davis said if we say I went missing, they'll divorce us automatically and we won't be sued for compensation. I'm the victim here. The only one at fault is Davis, this liar. Betty forcefully slapped my husband's cheek and stormed out of the restaurant. Stammering and holding his cheek, my husband was at a loss. Wait a minute. I can't afford to pay compensation. I'm not working right now. I was living off support from Betty's wealthy parents. Now, they'll kick me out. I can barely manage my own life. How can I pay such a large sum? How convenient for you to say that now. You abandoned us, leaving a young child with me, a non-working wife. You have no right to say that. You should take responsibility for the consequences of your actions. By the way, I've already let go of the house we lived in together. You'll need to find a new place to live. As I rose to leave, Davis grabbed my hand, tears welling up, pleading desperately. Wait, Anne, let's start over, shall we? Our daughter must want to see me, right? In the end, a family needs to be together. Apologize, so please forgive me. Oh, you seem to be misunderstanding something, aren't you? I shook off Davis's hand and looked down at him with cold eyes. You're a stranger to me now. You abandoned us yourself 20 years ago, remember? The waiter brought the hamburger to the crestfallen. The crestfallen Davis was slumped over the table. Davis used to make hamburgers for my daughter and me quite often in the past. Just with that small memory as the last, we were finally able to end things completely. Both Betty and Davis were sued for $30,000 each for compensation. Eddie, who broke up with Davis, was disowned by her family for keeping the affair a secret, losing their financial support, and had to juggle multiple unfamiliar jobs. Having a high schooler is quite expensive, so she will likely have a hard time from now on. Davis got hired at a neighborhood supermarket, but he wasn't young anymore and it was pitiful watching him carry heavy boxes and being yelled at by younger supervisors. Davis, who couldn't afford to pay the compensation, ended up in debt, facing an uncertain future, but that's none of my concern. Actions. As for me, although I had prepared to live alone, my daughter's husband suggested that I move in with them. He must have heard about my struggles from my daughter. He insisted that he really wanted me to live with them, and I decided to take up his kind offer. As for me, who had been very busy lately, his kindness was truly a blessing. Now, I'm living happily with my daughter and my son-in-law. Having lived alone for so long, these days have been bustling and happy for me. Moreover, it's settled that our family will be growing in the near future. In my daughter's womb, a new life was forming. Once this little one arrives, we plan to go take a family picture. As all the family photos I had till now, I threw away when I left home. I plan to forget the harsh memories of the past and start adorning a new album with this picture, marking the beginning of many joyful memories to come. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment. My name is Betty. I am a person who seems to be made up of 99 seriousness. For some reason, I find myself outside of the house now. Beside me, there is a suitcase. It's haphazardly packed with my bare essentials. In my hands, there are 2 envelopes. It's just before the start of early summer. This early summer, at the loveliest time of the year, I was expelled from my marital home. It happened without any forewarning. It was a morning like any other. Delicious smell wafted from the kitchen. After putting on some light makeup in my room, I headed downstairs to have breakfast. The meals prepared by the housekeeper are always incredibly delicious, causing me to inadvertently eat too much. Today's breakfast seems to be Japanese style. Humming a tune, I opened the door to the living room. However, what awaited me wasn't a wonderful breakfast. Betty, you deceived us. Upon seeing my face, my mother-in-law started shedding tears and repeatedly uttered incomprehensible words like liar and I believed in you. After saying all she had to say, she left, leaving behind only a resentful gaze. Meanwhile, my father-in-law just displayed a face filled with anger, continuously glaring at me. What on earth? What happened? I barely managed to utter these words. I had absolutely no idea why my in-laws were behaving this way towards me. After all, until yesterday, we were living amicably, to the extent that I might have confused them with my own parents. As I was bewildered by their incomprehensibly hostile attitude, my eyes settled on my husband, Aaron, who was silently eating his meal. This night, he had notified me that he would be staying at his other residence near his company, so I had assumed that he wouldn't be here this morning. He must have returned home late in the night. In desperation, I rushed towards Aaron. What happened with my in-laws? Something seems. I stuttered before I could continue, because Aaron was also acting strangely. He was looking at me as if I was a criminal, like a scornful and even fearful cold gaze. Aaron, you hypocrite! Aaron spat out disdainfully. He was not the kind and gentle man I knew. Even on days when we couldn't meet due to his busy schedule, he always brought back flowers that I liked as a gift. "I'm sorry. I really wanted to go on a trip together though," he would say. As a guiltless even just a week ago, he said such things. Aaron signaled to his assistant standing nearby. He's nearby who acknowledged what, that understood before heading upstairs. "You really did it. Betty. Was the reason you married me because you were after my money." "Excuse me? You stole Mom's money." "What? Wait. I didn't do anything like that." Using up such a huge amount of money and now making excuses. "What are you talking about, father-in-law?" "I really didn't leave this house, father-in-law. That's how it is." "What? It seems I was being accused of misusing my mother-in-law's money, and quite a substantial amount at that. However, I truly had no knowledge of it. I would never do such a thing." I pleaded over and over, but no one was willing to listen to me. I felt a chill when I saw what Aaron's assistant, who returned from upstairs, was holding. It was a suitcase. Presumably, my personal belongings were stuffed inside. "Wait, Aaron. Listen to me. I didn't think you were such a person. It's disappointing," Aaron said, shaking his head in dismay like a stage actor. He fully believed that I was the culprit. "Here, the divorce papers are inside. Once you've signed them, send them back to me," Aaron said, forcibly making me grip the envelope he took from his breast pocket. "Why? There's no way I can live with someone who is after my parents' inheritance. This is the consensus of the family. Leave immediately." It was a voice, so cold it felt like my spine was freezing. "That's awful. Why I really didn't do anything like that." Aaron completely ignored my frantic pleas and ordered his assistant, "Never let her onto this property again." "What are you doing? Stop it." His assistant forcibly dragged me out of the premises along with the suitcase. My face was already a mess with tears. Indeed, I was born into an ordinary family. I wasn't a wealthy person like Aaron. Having money is better, and I do wish to have as much as possible. But I am someone who is overwhelmingly serious. Even the thought of wanting to steal it never crossed my mind. As Aaron's assistant threw me out of the mansion onto the street as if chasing away a pest. It hasn't even been 30 minutes since I woke up. Am I having a nightmare? My brain can't catch up. I felt like I was about to go insane. In the midst of all this, the large gate closed mercilessly. Just before the gate closed, as Aaron's assistant stretched out his hand and made me hold another envelope. "This is also from Mr. Aaron. Please take it." Then the sound of the lock turning echoed, and it closed completely. I looked inside the envelope. The envelope contained what appeared to be a severance payment of $6,800. I married Aaron 3 years ago. I was working as a consulting accountant at the company where my father-in-law served as CEO. Although it would be better to say that I was involved in the business out of pity, assisting a superior and just having passed the accountant exam. One day, I was thinking, this doesn't make sense. I wanted to be recognized as a full-fledged accountant, so I started doing more and going beyond what my superiors asked me to do. And as a result, they realized that one of my superiors was falsifying the books and embezzling tens of thousands of dollars. I still remember that time. A sense of exhilaration, as if I had found a buried treasure, and fear as if I had witnessed a murder scene. Those two sensations raced through my body. Eventually, I decided to convey this fact to the CEO, my father-in-law. Being an inherently serious person, I never had the option of pretending not to have seen it. Of course, I also considered reporting her to the tax office, but if I did that, she wouldn't be able to remain as an accountant. Thank for me, who had finally become an accountant after many years of effort, doing something to that extent felt unbearable. My father-in-law had built a huge fortune in one generation and was terribly lax with money management. So he was targeted because of that weakness. Thank you so much. It's all thanks to Betty. If you hadn't noticed, we would have continued to be siphoned off indefinitely. I was celebrated by the CEO and his wife as if I was a hero who saved the earth. Betty, if you aren't dating anyone right now, wouldn't you marry our son? I wondered if it was the custom of wealthy people to exaggerate flattery. I didn't know the appropriate reaction at the time, so I just smiled awkwardly. However, my father-in-law's desire to marry her off was serious. When I realized it, as I was introduced to his son, and that son also praised me as a hero who defended the assets. Being praised so much didn't feel bad. Moreover, having been belittled for being serious for many years, I felt happy, feeling proven that living sincerely and seriously would indeed bring about good things. I, who was a fledgling apprentice accountant, was promptly appointed as an official consulting accountant, and even ended up doubling as the son's personal assistant. The son, this Aaron, was indeed a young man who thought optimistically that things would work out somehow. At first, I was astounded by his over-reliance on others, but at some point, I realized that I found happiness in assisting him. Aaron, you need to leave the company now or you won't make it to the discussion meeting. It's okay. I'll make sure to get there on time. Are you going to make unreasonable demands on the driver again? Then I will take care of the rest, so please leave. He probably thought of me, who was attentive to the details, as a good partner. We ended up dating as my father-in-law had planned, and receiving an overflowing praise. We got married. Years have passed since then. The relationship between him, me, and my in-laws remained good. The big change was that my father-in-law decided to entrust the company to his son. Therefore, my mother-in-law and I had to hustle around providing support in preparation for my father-in-law's retirement and his debut on the board of directors. Therefore, from today's evening, I was supposed to attend a related company's anniversary party with my mother-in-law. But where I find myself now is a drab room in a business hotel, giving in to anger and frustration. I even considered going straight back to my parents' home. However, I couldn't quell the anger inside me. If he wants to divorce me, so be it. But for me, who's lived my life abiding by the principles of honesty and sincerity, leaving while being branded a thief was something I could not accept by any means. I sat on the bed, revisiting the contents of the envelope. A severance payment. Shaking my head vigorously, I tried to hold back tears. I had to calm down no matter what. Exhaled a long, slender breath, and then closed my eyes and pondered. I have not taken any money from my mother-in-law. This is an absolute truth, which means someone else did something. I felt a resurgence of exhilaration and fear. I picked up the $6,800. I'll put it to good use. I quickly retouched my makeup and headed to a detective agency. iPhone rang a week later. Here are the investigation results. Inside a room in a mixed-use building, a bundle of papers clipped together were placed on the reception table. A jury report contained more information than I had imagined. I flipped through the pages one by one, suppressing my trembling hands. Then, I was shocked countless times before I finished reading everything. I got up, holding my dizzy head. When I stepped outside the building, an unpleasantly fresh breeze swept through. Everything was a lie. I muttered, slumping against a tree lining the street, as if entrusting my body to it. Passers-by who knew nothing about me passed by, giving me strange looks. After much deliberation over what to do, I found myself at my in-laws' residence. Why did you let her in the house? Because replacing the bad housemaid who was being scolded. I presented the signed divorce papers to my father-in-law. I brought this with me. Aren't you supposed to send it by mail? If you wish for a divorce, I don't mind at all. However, I absolutely cannot tolerate being accused of theft. Are you still saying that even now? My father-in-law, as if to snatch the divorce papers from my hand, turned on his heel, intending to leave the scene. I demand an apology from you all. If you cannot accept that, I'm prepared to take this to court. At the mention of the word court, my father-in-law stopped in his tracks. I was happy that you accepted a commoner like me. I loved you, father-in-law and mother-in-law, but I took a deep breath, clenching my fists. Then, I blurted out everything that followed. I really didn't do anything. Understand? I'll say it once more. I did not do anything. I stated, trying to remain as calm as possible. Hey, what do you mean by? I didn't do anything? That's what's going on here. It seemed he had been listening to our exchange from the shadows. My mother-in-law joined the conversation with a puzzled look on her face. It means exactly that, I said, taking an investigation report from my bag and handing it to her, urging, please have a look. What is this? The two of them were engrossed in the report, reading it voraciously. It seemed as if they were on the verge of collapsing. The culprit who stole my mother-in-law's money, it was Aaron. Even before we got married, Aaron had a terrible habit of squandering money. Because his family has enough wealth to enjoy life forever. Thus Aaron had habitually indulged in extravagant trips abroad, doing whatever he pleased, as among other things, gambling was his favorite, and he ended up pouring tens of thousands of dollars into a single bet. Even his parents felt a sense of crisis about this, and they took measures to prevent Aaron from using their money without permission. And I rebuked Aaron, telling him to earn money on his own. However, a habit of spending lavishly once formed isn't easily cured. That's when Aaron started thinking about how to get a large sum of money. The method Aaron chose was the very embezzlement case I had exposed. As Aaron had manipulated my superior, who was the consulting accountant for my father-in-law, instructing him to tamper with the accounts. I assumed it was the doing of my senior alone, and didn't investigate deeply before reporting to my father-in-law, hence never reaching the true mastermind. However, in reality, all the money tampered with by my superior was ending up in Aaron's pocket. When I discovered my superior's embezzlement, as Aaron had joined my in-laws in thanking me, but it seems his insides were boiling with turmoil. Suits were that accountant and Aaron in a relationship. Or rather, it was an affair, wasn't it? At that time, my superior was married. Yet Aaron was saying, "I love you. I want to gather funds to live together," and seemed to have encouraged my superior to embezzle. But in the end, my superior was caught for his misdeeds and fired from the company. Moreover, her husband grew tired of her, and they divorced. But despite abiding by Aaron's selfish request not to reveal his name, it was I whom he married. Aaron apparently persuaded her with these words. I said, opening the relevant page of the report. Gathering strength in my stomach, determined not to cry. I read aloud. Marrying Betty is perfect for diverting my parents' attention. If I have her, who is serious about money, as my wife, my parents will lower their guard. Then, I can get as much money as I want. In fact, things went exactly as he anticipated. Lisa, my in-laws, had let their guard down regarding Aaron's spending habits, believing in me, who had a track record of catching the embezzler, as their son's wife. Mother-in-law, why did you think I stole your money? That's because Aaron said he had entrusted my card to Betty. My mother-in-law averted her gaze from me. Aaron has been working hard lately, and I thought there might be times when it wouldn't look good to pay in cash for someone in his position, so I decided to let him carry my credit card. But at that time, Aaron said, I shouldn't use a credit card that has no limit, so I'll have Betty manage it. My mother-in-law said, So is that why I was labeled a thief? I must say, Aaron never told me any of that. Besides, fundamentally, you shouldn't allow even family to use credit cards, right? Perhaps unable to hide the shock of being deceived by their son, they wore lifeless expressions. By the way, did you read what the stolen money was used for? I don't understand anything anymore. The fading voice, tears started to spill steadily from my mother-in-law's eyes. I handed over the report to them again. He bought a condominium. Show me. Son. There's already a house near the company that he uses, isn't there? This is the condominium he bought for my superior. Aaron has been connected with her for a long time. Recently, he often stayed at the house near the company because of busy work, hasn't he? It seems like he was at her place. And Aaron has always been about that person, my mother-in-law said. He certainly loved her more than me, didn't he? Betty? I continued to talk, fighting my feelings. I read this loathsome report several times before coming here, and I had already vented enough tears. Aaron seems to be having quite a fun time with my superior. After all, they frequently visit underground casinos together. If you'd like the last page. My father-in-law hurriedly flipped through the pages. Dad? What is this amount? It seems he lost it in the underground casinos. So, he will probably be chased by this debt repayment for the time being. My mother-in-law finally slumped down. I want to confirm, other than my mother-in-law's card, everything else is fine, right? Oh. Hearing my question, my father-in-law dashed towards the phone at once. Stop it. Please raise that card immediately, please. My father-in-law's voice echoed throughout the mansion. Afterwards, I received a formal apology from my in-laws. They also apologized for hiding their son's wasteful habits and his infidelity. I must admit, it doesn't sit well with me that there has been no apology from Aaron himself, but I'm content enough with having been able to convey the truth to both of you. I filled out the divorce papers, so with this. I gave a nod and started preparing to leave when... Wait. Betty. Yes, please wait. Their attitude from a week ago seemed to have disappeared. Accusing someone of being a thief. And now this... I'm sorry, but don't you think that's too selfish? I loved both of you, as father-in-law and mother-in-law. I'm truly grateful that you cherished me as your daughter. That was for me. Despite holding back until now, tears suddenly started to spill. Ever as one drop led to another, tears streamed down my cheeks one after another. Adi, I filled out the divorce papers accurately. The divorce is also your precious son's wish. Maybe you should consider his feelings. It seems he has someone he is seeing, after all. As I wiped away my tears, I mustered all the sarcasm I could and spoke. That's when it happened. An alarm echoed throughout the house. An interruption at this critical moment. As I grimaced at the sudden loud noise, my father-in-law grabbed my wrist. Excuse me, father-in-law? Mom, come with us. What are you doing? We were taken out to the garden. In front of us was the gate that had locked me out a week ago. Then a voice came from outside. Connie, the key won't open. Isn't anyone there? Damn it, the card isn't working either. Shit. It was Aaron. He vented his frustrations while hitting the gate with all his might. The obnoxious alarm disturbing the neighborhood didn't seem to want to stop. Listen carefully. Dad? You were there. Look, it seems there's something wrong with my key. Can't you open it from there? I said, listen. What's up? Aaron sensed the unusual demeanor of his father and stuttered. Aaron, you no longer have the right to open this gate. Tut! I revoked your access rights just now. I don't think you are so foolish as to not understand why. We know everything. Absolutely everything. Is his mom there too? Betty is someone important to us. But you're different. I never want to see your face again. What happened exactly? Mom, you're there, right? Please say something. Wait, just wait. Where did you get such? Don't spout nonsense. Han continued to desperately argue his case. I was nervous on the inside. I feared that this couple might once again be swayed by their son's words and accuse me of lying. But that fear turned out to be unfounded. I believe in Betty. I do too. Father-in-law, mother-in-law. I'm truly sorry. I have a request. Could you possibly take over my place instead of my son? Hey, is Betty there too? Aaron's voice filled with anger. It seemed like he was throwing a big tantrum. However, unfortunately for Aaron, his resistance did not last long. This was because the security staff who appeared after a while managed to calm him down quietly. In the end, I decided to accept my father-in-law's proposal. However, I made them agree to one condition. I will never lie. Therefore, can you always believe in me? Both of them nodded firmly. A year later, can someone like me really handle being an executive? I was hesitating in front of the door to the executive room. My father-in-law firmly patted my shoulder, and Aaron and I got divorced, but I continued to call the CEO father-in-law as before. It was decided unanimously. But Betty, this company needs someone who is sincere and honest. It's a job that's perfect for you, isn't it? My father-in-law said with a kind smile. However, I decided to throw a slightly malicious question at my father-in-law. Do you regret kicking Aaron out? If that is the case, Aaron should be the one standing here. Since that incident, my in-laws had distanced themselves from Aaron. At first, Then frequently came to ask for money, but after realizing that they would not respond at all, he stopped coming. But their son, who disappeared along with a massive debt. I wonder if he is still living with my superior. Aaron, huh? He sighed softly, seemingly lonely. But the one who should stand here is not Aaron. The burden was too heavy for Aaron. Well, it's mainly our fault for spoiling him too much. Father-in-law? Hey, why the long face? Come on, stand tall with confidence. Yes. I put my hand on the handle leading to the executive rooms. The door opened smoothly, just like an automatic door. After a 3-month business trip alone, my husband returned home with his mistress and said this to me. She is pregnant. Please divorce me. And since we'll need money moving forward, it's good to have no alimony, right? Fine. I'd be happy to grant you a divorce. Hearing my response, both my husband and his mistress were overjoyed. Watching this, I thought to myself, if you think this will go as you planned, you're gravely mistaken. My name is Elma. I'm a 30-year-old homemaker. My husband, Mark, runs a business. He inherited the business from my father-in-law. We met through a mutual friend, and a friend who was worried about me being too focused on work and not dating, introduced me to Mark. When we first met, perhaps knowing that he would inherit the business, he was full of confidence. I was drawn to that confident aspect of him. He seemed capable at his job, which was quite attractive. But we started dating. Mark was very kind, and it was always a joy to talk to him. Although I felt he was a bit arrogant, as I got to know him, discovered his gentle and delicate side, making me want to be with him in the long run. After dating for 5 years, he proposed, and we decided to get married. I intended to continue working after marriage, but Mark told me, "I will be running the business, so I want you to quit your job and support me." Until now, I had been working hard solely on my job, so quitting was unthinkable. However, I thought that living to support my husband could be a valid path too, so I prioritized Mark's wishes and resigned. Not to toot my own horn, but I was quite a competent employee at the company. So when I announced my resignation, my boss strongly urged me not to. However, seeing that I was firm in my decision, he said, "I'll support you, but feel free to come back anytime." I invited my colleagues to the wedding, which turned out to be a wonderful ceremony. I felt like it was happening to someone else, thinking, is the day I get married really coming? Mark smiled at me with a lovely smile by my side. "I'm going to live happily with this man from now on." I felt extremely happy thinking that. However, as our married life began, I started to see Mark's true nature. Initially, Mark was very busy preparing to take over the company. I was very happy to be able to support my busy husband by his side. I cooked his favorite meals for him when he came back tired and did the laundry to provide him with a clean bed to sleep in. I was very pleased to see him happy with what I did. "Thank you always for working hard on the household chores." "Thanks to you, Ilma. I'm happy every day. Thank you for your hard work every day. I'm also happy to be able to support you the most closely. I'm glad I could marry you." Since he always expressed his gratitude, I felt happy. But from my in-laws, I heard, "We're so glad to have someone like you as our daughter-in-law." "Did you quit your job for Mark? I heard you were excellent at the company you used to work for." But despite that, we can only be grateful that you quit your job to support Mark. "Thank you." The president of the company where I originally worked knew my father-in-law. It seems like he was willing to listen to my story. He seemed genuinely sorry to hear that I had left the company as a business owner. And when we mentioned that we are not considering having children at the moment, he said, "That is up to you guys. Take your time and move at your own pace. But what about the heir? You don't need to worry about that, Elma. Moreover, the concept of an heir is outdated now. That's anyone who wants to become the president should be able to do it," he told me. When I shared this with my friend Grace, she said, "You have really progressive in-laws, huh? But I think they might be expecting an heir, so I feel like we can't take too much time." "What are you talking about? Your in-laws must be speaking their true feelings." "Do you think so?" "Absolutely. You have such enviable in-laws. Despite being in the position of a company president, who would seem likely to insist on having an heir, they have a flexible mindset, which is wonderful. They really are wonderful in-laws. That's why I don't want to disappoint them. Why do you have such a rigid mindset? Elma, even though your in-laws are flexible. If they told you not to worry, then you shouldn't. If I were to marry, I'd want to go to a place with in-laws like yours. Grace praised them, making me happy as well. I was very grateful for my in-laws' flexible mindset and their willingness to accept me. Thus, I had built a good relationship with my in-laws, but my relationship with my husband was gradually changing. Recently, maybe because of his busy work, he sometimes comes home late and started to drink alcohol irrespective of the time and in huge quantities. This upset me early stages of our marriage. He often refrained from drinking if he came home late considering the next day's work. But lately, he drinks without any regard. That would still be fine, but he started to get irritable and take it out on me when he drinks. Buzz, bing more. I'm still drinking. And some snacks too. I understand, but nothing. Your only response should be yes. You're a housewife. You should dedicate yourself to your husband. He kept grumbling like this. My husband kept reaching for more alcohol, completely drunk. Maybe you should cut back a bit. You're drinking too much. You work tomorrow, maybe it's better to go to bed early, don't you think? When I pointed this out, my husband's expression changed. He stood up and slammed the table with a bang and started yelling at me. All you do is stay at home. Not working, huh? I am the one working and getting tired here. What's the problem with me enjoying a drink when I get home, huh? I stepped back, shocked. Seeing my face, my husband seemed to panic and immediately apologized. I've been so tired lately that I can't sleep unless I have a drink. But I drank too much. I'm reflecting on it. I'm sorry I didn't consider your feelings, even though I'm also tired from work. I'm really sorry. Truly sorry. I guess he must be exhausted because of the transitions happening at the company. Taking over the company from his father and becoming the CEO isn't easy at all. He must be under a lot of stress. I felt like I shouldn't have said those unnecessary things. I should be more understanding. However, I was worried whether the amount of alcohol he consumed wouldn't affect his job, given that he has to work the next day. And after that, whenever my husband drank, he became irritable and his selfish remarks became more noticeable. He started to shout more frequently if I even slightly intervened. Don't complain to me, who's earning money while you're just a stay-at-home wife. Your job is to work for me. Just don't interfere with me. Moreover, you wouldn't have any recognition or bonuses if you were working at my company. You seem to have performed fairly well when you were working before, but now you're less than a housemaid, okay? You're worthless. He even began to deny my worth as a person. Actually, it became harder for me to support my husband as he transformed from the kind person he used to be to someone who spews hateful words when he drinks. As this lifestyle continued, we kept misunderstanding each other's feelings. Perhaps because of that, he gradually started coming home late or not coming home at all. Despite the discordant days, my husband said he had something to talk about and came home earlier than usual one day. I finally got to take over the company. I will become the CEO from next week. Congratulations. I've been really busy lately. I'm sorry that we haven't had much time together as a couple. I think things will calm down a bit, so how about we try to have a child? A chapter 20. Honestly, I was worried. My husband's personality changes when he drinks, and with the current discord between us, I wasn't sure if having a child was the right decision. However, having a child doesn't mean it'll happen instantly. And eventually, I wanted a child too, so we decided to try for a baby. This must be what they call timing. But it's been a month since we started trying to have a baby. My husband has decided to go on a business trip out of state alone. It would be for a long period of 3 months. Since it's work-related, I thought it couldn't be helped, and we temporarily stopped trying to conceive. However, about 2 weeks after my husband went on his trip, I started feeling unwell and went to the hospital. That's when I found out I was pregnant. My husband had said that he wanted an heir, so he would probably be happy. Thinking this, I wanted to tell him directly. However, since I hadn't asked where he was stationed for his business trip, I realized I couldn't tell him directly. So, I decided to contact his company to ask for his whereabouts. That's when they said the COA is on a long vacation. He thought he was out with you. I was so surprised that the person on the phone also sounded shocked. This is bad. They might think, why doesn't his wife know where he is? If my statement creates weird rumors around the company, I would feel really sorry towards my husband. So I said, oh right. He's visiting his parents' home today. I'm so clumsy. I forgot. And hung up. That's sexually even after hanging up, my heart was racing. My husband wasn't on a business trip, but was on a long vacation. I couldn't understand what was happening. I realized that pondering alone won't get me anywhere, so I decided to contact Grace and share my concerns with her. I told her that I was pregnant, that my husband gets violent when he drinks, and that he lied about going on a business trip and is actually taking time off from work. That sounds like emotional abuse. Or emotional abuse. No, it's not. It's just that I'm unable to do anything right, which is why I'm angering him. It's my fault for being a failure. Oh, come on! That's exactly what someone undergoing emotional abuse would say. There's no such thing as a failure in a marriage, right? It's about complementing each other, isn't it? I realized that I had become afraid of my husband, always trying not to anger him without noticing it myself. I wouldn't have noticed if Grace hadn't pointed it out to me. You're not just one person anymore, you know? If you have a child, you need to have more confidence in yourself and take care of yourself. And get style comes persadience. Those words woke me up. There's a child on my belly. The only one who can protect the baby inside me is myself. I resolved to face my husband. Later, following Grace's advice, I went to a private detective agency to have my husband investigated. But from the investigation, I found out that he was having an affair. I was shocked, but thanks to the child in my belly, I was able to hold myself together. And then 3 months passed. My husband returned from his business trip, and he brought his mistress back with him. The two of them had been drinking. The smell of alcohol was strong. Maybe it's because I'm pregnant, but the smell was so intense that it was unbearable. And that, you see, I got this girl pregnant. So let's get a divorce. We're going to need money, so how about no alimony, okay? You won't cling to your husband's money even if he has been unfaithful, right? The mistress said this, and they both laughed. My husband was drunk, and I didn't want to cause a scene here, and moreover, I didn't want anything to happen to the child in my belly. I said without resisting, I'll give you a divorce, but can I have the house? The house? Sure, I'll give it to you. I just bought a condo today to live with this girl. So there's no problem. Then change the deed to my name. Please handle the paperwork. Yeah. I'll mail the divorce papers. Make sure to submit them to the city hall. Understood. It's good that we can divorce easily. Saying that, he left the house. The two of them drove away somewhere. They were clearly driving under the influence, but I wonder if it's okay. Well, it's not my problem anymore. An hour later, I received a call from my father-in-law. Mark came home and said he's divorcing you and marrying another woman. What's going on? I told him everything that happened. I found out about my husband's lie when I decided to tell him that I was pregnant, and this happened. Today, after he was supposed to be working away alone for 3 months, he returned home bringing along his mistress. Furthermore, he has been drinking excessively and causing a ruckus until now, which has been very troublesome. And he has been driving under the influence. Upon conveying all this, my father-in-law was furious. I understand. I will make him take responsibility. I will apologize later. I'm very sorry. After saying just that, he hung up the phone. Then, a few minutes later, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Elma, Ark is going berserk. Help? It seems he started causing trouble, probably because he was drinking and got scolded by my father-in-law, which angered him. I called the police before heading to my in-laws' house. Their house is about a 15-minute drive away. As I sped to the location, the police had already arrived. When I arrived, my husband was being restrained by the police. Then my husband pushed away the officer restraining him, and that officer hit his head on the corner of the stairs at my in-laws' house, holding his head. As another officer tried to restrain my husband, but he suddenly collapsed, probably because he was too drunk and acting violently. An ambulance was called, and he was carried away. The mistress tried to escape during this chaos, but was stopped by the police. We want to hear your side of the story. Please come with us. She was told and reluctantly followed. The next day, my husband woke up in the hospital. He seems surprised to see me there. Why are you here? I forgot to tell you something. After the divorce is finalized, I'm going to request alimony and child support. Child support? Are you out of your mind? We don't have any kids, right? Actually, I'm carrying a child. I wanted to tell you, but then you suddenly brought up divorce. You're lying, is it true? There's no point in lying about something like this here, right? My husband was very shocked, but he seemed to be more concerned about something else. You said you didn't want any alimony, right? I never said that. Were you just too drunk and perceived it in a way that's convenient for you? I said, smiling. He glared at me. Then my father-in-law intervened. How could you do such a thing to Elma? There's no way you can avoid paying alimony. Why have you grown up to be such an insensitive and worthless person? He lamented. Husband, hearing his parents say this, seemed to have lost his ability to argue back and remained silent. So, all I need is the alimony and child support. Also, I will be taking the house. Hey, what's left for me then? You have a mistress, right? And since she has a kid during that time, so it's not a big deal, right? Don't mess with me. You are not in a position to say, don't mess with me, you know? Besides, I thought the house was under your name, but it turned out to be under my father-in-law's name. He will handle the procedures, so don't interfere with me anymore, okay? I conveyed this, and my husband just stared blankly, saying nothing. At that moment, a police officer entered. We are here regarding yesterday's incident. There is a warrant for your arrest for assault. As for the time being, my in-laws have agreed to cover the alimony and child support payments from my husband. He was released pretty soon, but since his arrest made big news, he seems to be finding it hard to land another job. A teen now estranged even by his parents, it seems like he's at his wits' end with nowhere to go. As for the mistress, I had a private investigator dig up some details on her, and I made sure to file a hefty claim for damages. It seems they've tied the knot, but with no money, they are struggling to make ends meet. The mistress can't work since she's expecting and stays at home, but my husband is working tirelessly without a break, resulting in non-stop arguments as their lives continue to drift apart. Well, it serves them right. As for me, in-laws suggested I should join their company, but I wasn't comfortable working at the place where my ex-husband was previously employed, so I decided to return to my old job. Even then, my in-laws were kind enough to put in a good word with the president of my previous company. The company has a daycare on site, so I can work with peace of mind while raising my child. I know that challenging days might be ahead once the baby is born, but I am determined to shoulder the responsibility and raise my child as a single mother, doing the best I can. I'm Anne, 54 years old. I'd like to say I'm just an average person, but according to my sister-in-law Iris, I'm privileged and don't know the struggles of ordinary people. But more on that later. My husband is Davis, 54 years old as well. We're the same age. We both work full-time during the weekdays. We don't have any children now. About the reason why Iris keeps saying you're so privileged to. don't know the struggles of ordinary people. It is because the house I live in is located in a very nice area. It's close to both Union Square in San Francisco and Chinatown. And of course, I can walk to the station. My grandfather built the house on land he owned, which was then taken over by my parents. After they passed away, Davis and I moved here, leaving our condo. And then there's Iris, who says this privileged stuff, who is 8 years younger at 46. She often comes to visit our home, leaving her husband and 12-year-old child behind. She travels 2 hours to visit us once every 3 months, spending the weekend. She really likes Union Square, it seems. She is 8 years younger than Davis. She was a small and adorable child when Davis was in elementary school, or so he says. His parents seem to have doted on her a lot since she was born later in their life. But I just couldn't grow fond of this Iris. Oh, it must be nice, growing up here without any hardships, my snide sister-in-law would say. Since I was born in the countryside, I didn't have any places to play. You must have grown up cozy without knowing any hardships. Being a lady and all, she often says. It's clear she's not friendly towards me. But she seems to like both Union Square and Chinatown and comes to visit this house. Of course, she brings no gifts. The reason is that you would mock the countryside items if I brought them, she says. Coming empty-handed, she would say, it must be nice being so close to Union Square and Chinatown. You don't have any struggles, do you? You can live without a car. You as countryside folks can't live without a car, so we have to spend on transportation costs, you know. When I say, but your area is also nice, isn't it? I like it. The air is clean and the people around are kind. She retorts, what's that sarcasm? You're bragging about the convenient transportation and numerous shops here, aren't you? When I mention, I don't even go out much, you know. I work during the day, she accuses. You really are snide, aren't you? You want to say, obviously the tourist spots are nearby, unlike where you live, right? I want to retort, who's being snide here? I complained to Davis about her sharp words, but he dismissed it saying, well, Iris just speaks her mind. She's just straightforward, very straightforward. Now, amidst all this, I heard that Iris is building a house. She mentioned it when she visited again. Uttering when I asked, where? She replied, in my neighborhood, obviously. We had to buy the land first. We didn't have it from the beginning like you, so we can't afford to buy in such a nice area. It must be nice being rich. Or so she went on. Bar. I was already irritated with the constant remarks, so I tried asking, so how should I speak so you don't find it snide? Why don't you just stay silent? You only spout snide remarks whenever you speak, she retorted. I couldn't do anything but remain silent. I was clearly excluded from the conversation. Weeks then, she comes to visit but doesn't speak a word to me. But she comes. Even more than before. Because Davis allows it. Hey, wait a minute. Iris, you come to our house and ignore me? You use the bath and eat the meals, but ignore me? I tried saying to him. He then said, that's what I've been saying. she's just being straightforward. You don't have to talk to her either, right? She comes here leaving her husband and kid behind, so she doesn't have to worry about being polite, right? So both parties don't have to be considerate. But still. Today too, she went to play in Chinatown on her own, came back, used the bath as she pleased and went to sleep. And the next day, she silently eats the breakfast I prepared and gets up. Not even a word of thanks. Is this a hotel? Am I a servant and a head chef? If that's the case, I want to issue and sell an annual pass. Now, 3 months later, she's here again. Today seems to be for strolling around Union Square. But later in the evening, she had a long conversation with Davis. She stayed over for the night and then went home, but he was so excited, showing a bunch of pictures. Hey, check this out. This is the house Iris built. Oh, she built a house, huh? Look at this. You'll love it when you see it. What he showed was a pure white building. It definitely looked newly built and clean. Isn't this incredible? He exclaimed, showing his excitement vividly. I tilted my head. At first glance, it looked like a garage. Car, is this? That's right. Isn't that amazing? He bragged, puffing up his nose, and then shouted. It's a motorcycle garage, and it's custom made. Now my Harley can fit in here. What? I was taken aback. Yeah, I told you my Harley can fit in there. You say told you, but I don't understand what you mean. This is Iris's house, right? Though Iris and I have been discussing this for a while. And we're going to swap houses. I was shocked by the unexpected response and development. I ended up dropping the teacup I was holding. Iris has been saying how nice the location of this house is for a while now. I've always complained that it's old since it's been in your family from your parents' generation. Though Iris said, well, I'll build a new one here and let's swap houses. That's why I had a special motorcycle garage built so I could park my Harley. Wait, without any consultation? I don't want to leave this house. I didn't mean anything about the other house per se. I mean, I can't even keep up with the thoughts. Perhaps my opposition was unexpected. Davis began to get increasingly irritated. As to me, his unexpected expression was indeed unexpected. Why are you hesitating? I've been completely ignored. But think about it. It's only benefits. It comes with a motorcycle garage. Hold on a second. What about my position here? You like watching suspense dramas, right? The other house has a TV too. Indeed, his hobby is motorcycles. He cherishes his Harley Davidson almost as much as his life. In comparison, I don't have much of a hobby. At best, I enjoyed watching suspense dramas on TV. That commuting just a bit more time on the bus and the train, that's all. Just a bit. It's increasing by 2 hours, isn't it? I can commute on my Harley. You should spend about 2 hours commuting. You've been gaining weight recently. You should be forced to diet. But forced to diet is a bit too much. How painful it would be to do that every day. But his mind was filled with the new house and the dedicated garage to store his Harley. Therefore, seeing me clinging to this old house seemed unexpected and irritating, and he seemed to be genuinely angry. Finally, he resorted to strong measures. I'm giving my house to my sister and her husband. It's a new build with a motorcycle garage. There's no reason to refuse. If you refuse, we're getting a divorce. He started saying, "Divorce? You just said divorce now." I also thought, pushing it that far. I was in shock and numb for about 2 hours. I can't help but think that the house with a motorcycle garage was built only for Davis. Because there's no motorcycle at Iris's place. That means from the very beginning, she built the house with the intention of taking it over. But on second thought, he's also something for consenting to it on his own. He's furthermore deciding on a transaction all by himself, saying if you refuse we divorce. This is clearly blackmail. I won't forgive him. Thus, I battled with my smartphone for the next 8 hours until the morning. The next day, I agreed to move with him, but for 2 weeks for packing. I have work on weekdays. I set the condition. And one more thing. They can't move in until after we vacate, right? I said, "Well, yes." Davis showed understanding. You had the garage built, right? That's then at least, as a thank you. I want to hand it over in a clean state. Can we hand it over after another 2 weeks? I will have it cleaned by a professional. He agreed. In his absence, I made calls to 2 places. Places? Well, the 2 weeks passed in no time. He was cheerfully packing, continuously singing a mysterious song called Harley Harley, while asking Iris on the phone about the size of that room and deciding on the furniture arrangement. It seems there were calls about the floor plan from the other side as well. Since it is a move from the apartment they are currently living in, the 4-week grace period given to the other party is quite short for moving preparations. They seem to be busily preparing for the move and the day of the movie. Hello. We are the movers. The moving company arrived. Oh, please come in this way. Davis invited the movers in. But right after, another moving company arrived. "What?" said Davis. I passed him and said, "Oh, please come in this way," inviting the movers in. Nguyen. Wait a minute. What's going on here? He shouted. What do you mean? I told you, didn't I, that it's okay to move. So let's both move to our new homes. Acceptive trains. See you. Oh, movers, please bring the items with yellow tape over here. The rest goes to the other one. I briskly gave instructions. And an hour later, well, that's how it is. Thank you for everything till now. I'll mail the divorce papers later. Wait a minute. Don't to his frantic shout. I turned back slightly. The one who said wanted a divorce was you, right? Leaving Davis behind. I swiftly left the scene in the taxi I had called. I got into the taxi, but I only went a short distance. Good job. A person who was waiting for a taxi came over. It was my brother, Hans. Hans had come to help me with the move. Well, it's good that you found a place in 2 weeks. It's a rental though. Well, you can look for a condo or something once everything settles down. Anyway, it's been a tough time. It's more than just a tough time. For now, I marked the essentials like the rice cooker with yellow tape. It's with yellow tape, so I'll manage somehow here. He helped me move. Despite the large items being arranged by the movers, having a man's help was necessary for the smaller details. It was a relief. Thus, with Hansy's help, the move was completed within the day. Well then, call me again in 2 weeks. Hans went back. Now then 2 weeks he mentioned, which is 2 weeks from the day I moved. My smartphone rang. See, hum? Hello? I answer it, and the voice belongs to Iris. What the hell is going on? I just listen in silence. My house, it's gone. I bow my head, holding back a laughter. It's tough not being able to make a sound. It's just an empty lot. Why are you staying silent? Because I was told, isn't it better to stay silent? She let out a high-pitched scream. I finally burst into laughter. It seems she's with Davis. The phone was handed over to him. How could you go this far? He shouted, sounding like he was about to cry. I don't want to hear that from someone who threatened me. My stomach really hurts now. Besides, I did say I want to clean it up for you, didn't I? That's not the kind of clean I was talking about. It's the ultimate clean. It's completely fresh. He kept clicking his tongue. Anyhow, come to talk. I have nothing to discuss with you. I won't stamp the divorce papers if you refuse. You said divorce the last time I refused to leave that house, didn't you? What a turnaround. Sit up. Etchin Tansa and I'll come to your place for now. But I'm too scared to go alone, so I'll bring a companion. That's how we got in touch with Hans. It's my turn, huh? I'm on it. I feel my reliable brother. Thank you all for gathering. I'd said Iris's husband, who I haven't seen since the wedding, as if starting a wedding ceremony. Iris's husband seems timid. Hans. Davis. Iris and Iris's husband gathered around a table in the husband's new home in a circle. Luckily, the kids were in the next room. However, the sight in that room was monumental. Iris came here with high spirits, but was dumbfounded upon seeing the now vacant lot. But she already canceled her apartment lease, so she can't go back. Fortunately, Davis moved into the new house Iris built, which now houses their belongings. As a result, the place was extremely cramped, with 2 sets of dinnerware, 2 tables, basically 2 of everything. I thought it was eerie having 2 of everything like this. It's like what they call a broadcast accident on TV. And for goodness sake, why would you demolish it? This is too much of a slight against me. That's right. Just because Iris is easygoing and you are sulky, that's no reason to be so petty. Davis and Iris were shouting non-stop. I just laughed. I inherited that land and house. It was originally my grandfather's, so I can do whatever I want with it. Davis flinched. That's when Hans stepped in to help. In other words, that property was inherited by Anne. So it's Anne's personal property and not a joint asset with Davis. In other words, Davis originally had no right to decide to give it to Iris, or anything like that. Huh, anything like that? What? Huh. Both Iris and Davis were shocked by the unexpected turn of events. Well, you could have just said that. Just like siblings. They say the same things. Is it my fault now? We were also like, you threatened us with divorce if we didn't comply, and as for Iris, we were told not to speak to her, so we couldn't say anything. And was threatened with divorce by Davis, and ignored by Iris. He can't blame her for not being able to say anything. It was indeed the same response from the sibling duo. Taken Christians, so I've decided to demolish that house since it's too big for me to live alone and sell the lot. I said, yes, the people I called the day after receiving the divorce threat were, one was Hans, and the other one was a demolition contractor. They said it would take 10 days to demolish the house. It takes Iris about 2 hours to get here. But to get here for hours round trip, if she has less time to move, she definitely can't come due to the rush of packing. But the same goes for Davis, who recently moved to a new building near her apartment. Business Willie. I was able to create a massive counterattack by moving to an empty lot. Give me a break. I've lost my home. Plus the moving expenses, since the house was gone. I had to temporarily move into Davis's house, incurring double the moving costs. I don't care. You could have been sued for trespassing on my property without permission. You couldn't enter because it was demolished. Isn't it good that you didn't become a criminal? I retorted with a smirk. Then to Davis, I said, is a woman who nags about such small amounts of money truly carefree? It's laughable. Hans chimed in from the side saying, ignoring isn't being carefree. It's being gloomy, huh? Does this mean the moving plans progressed without Ent's permission? Iris's husband, who'd been quiet until now, interrupted. Yes, that's right. Moreover, Iris told me to shut up, and Davis threatened me. They were getting carried away, just by themselves. I exposed the truth. At that, Iris's husband, who seemed timid until now, started to tremble, saying, Hey, you, what's the meaning of this? Every 3 months, you squander money at Union Square or Chinatown. Especially the spending at Union Square was extreme, leaving me and the kids. And now you even sold the car, saying we don't need it since we're going to live there. Cars are essential for living here, but this house has a bike garage, not a parking space. You involve too many people with your unilateral decisions. What's going on? Perhaps Iris had never seen him so enraged. Iris had never seen him so enraged. She was clearly shaken. Iris, her husband continued, she told me we are moving into Davis's house. If you refuse, it's divorce. The siblings are so alike in what they say. I felt like my abs were going to give in from holding back laughter. This would surely lead to muscle soreness tomorrow, but I agreed to it. Now, I think it's too selfish and would adversely affect the children. I pointed it out, and I agree with her. Taking a breath, Iris's husband told her what you did was threatening. And finally he said, "Well, it's over for us too. Protect and raise the children. I will willingly accept that threat as a suggestion." Actually, well then, let me say this anew. I decided to give Davis a blow as well. I'll accept that as a suggestion too. It's really over for us. Goodbye. Hold on a second. The situation has changed since the house is gone, right? Yes. The situation has changed, so it's not right to unilaterally break up. The siblings started yelling in unison. Her husband and I waved our hands in dismissal. After creating a crazy situation on your own and getting carried away, it's just returned to the original state. Her husband was merciless. So what happened in the end? Ice's husband and I each hired lawyers, and it resulted in mediated divorces. It seems that the new house built by Iris will be given to her husband, along with custody of the children. She was one to go out and spend lavishly. The children seem to have been lonely since they were left alone, even on weekends. Now that they are with a single parent, the father started taking more care of them, and the children seem happy, saying it's better this way. They're happy to have their dad with that. The reason why the new house became the property of her ex-husband was because she did not have enough income to pay the loan. Her ability to come to San Francisco every 3 months and squander money despite the lack of income is quite something. In the end, her spending habits did not change, and I heard she is drowning in debt. The bike garage will be demolished, and the layout will be changed a bit to create a parking space. As for Davis, who'd been working together with me until now, he didn't have the financial flexibility to invest in a Harley after being kicked out of my house. He lost a significant portion of his assets in the property division and had to let go of his Harley, taking his frustration out on the lawyer after losing his Harley and hobby, becoming despondent in life and drowning in alcohol. How interesting. As for me, I converted the lot where my demolished house was into a parking lot, since it's close to Union Square and Chinatown, as I was able to charge a premium for parking fees, and that turned into a regular income. I used that as capital and eventually bought a condo. Since it's a one-person condo, the layout is small, but that makes it all the more cozy. I settled in front of the big screen TV with a grin. Today is a day when there's a suspense drama airing. The moment to watch it with a cooler in hand, without being disturbed by anyone. It's the best. I've already taken a bath and all set with the ultimate 5-piece set, makeup-free pajamas, beer, big screen, and suspense drama. I also prepared some snacks, buried myself in the sofa, and pressed the remote control switch. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment. I gave birth to the hospital. There were several missed calls on the phone my husband had forgotten, so reluctantly I answered. A woman's voice suddenly said that I was lost for words and remained silent. Shortly after, my husband returned home to get the phone. When our eyes met, his face changed color and he froze. Seeing his reaction, I was convinced that he had fathered a child with his mistress. And then, I silently handed him the phone that was still connected. My name is Betty Johnson. I'm a 28-year-old office worker. My husband Maurice, who is 2 years older than me, works at a bank. Kate knows and TS that help, go his career is going well. We had a concern. That is, despite being married for nearly 3 years, we haven't been able to have children yet. As to being a dual-income couple, there was limited time to spend together, and it seemed common to have difficulties conceiving. Given our ages, I was starting to feel the pressure. So we decided to have a conversation about trying to conceive. I've been thinking about wanting to have kids soon. What about you, Maurice? I'm getting older too, and I do want children. I'm considering consulting at a gynecologist's office. I really want to plan out our efforts to conceive properly. Well, I don't think we need to rush it just yet. I still cherish our time together, just the two of us. I know I'm not rushing, but there's the matter of age on the woman's side. You're right about that. We should be prepared for you to get pregnant at any time. Maurice shared that he felt there was no need to rush the pregnancy, but he wanted to have a stable living environment ready for when we do have a child. Expectations. We were living in Morris's company-provided housing, but it was far from my workplace, making the commute inconvenient. Moreover, it was a 4-story building with no elevator, so we, residing on the 3rd floor, had to use the stairs. If I were to get pregnant, the commute would become considerably inconvenient, and using the stairs with a baby post-delivery might be quite a challenge. Maurice worried about this, and was thinking about moving before I got pregnant. Sharing Morris's foresight, I agreed to search for a home in a more child-friendly environment. Fortunately, my parents, who manage apartments, recommended a property near a convenience station for my commute. We visited the place and were completely taken with it. This is a nice place. It's near the station, which would make your commute much easier. Betty: Yeah, but it's going to be far from your workplace. Is that all right? It's fine since I commute by car. It comes with a parking spot, so it might actually be more convenient. To facilitate the purchase of the apartment, my parents agreed to front the money, and we would make monthly payments to buy it from them, reducing our financial burden. Moving into the new apartment, which had an elevator and was within walking distance to the station and supermarket, we found ourselves satisfied with our comfortable life. As we got used to our life in the new place, I decided to undergo tests at the gynecologist's office as a part of our efforts to conceive, and discussed this with Maurice. He wasn't too keen on the idea, but sensing that men might be hesitant at first, I decided to patiently wait for him to agree. For him to agree, by testing. I don't mean starting infertility treatments right away. We're just getting checked to see if there are any issues making it difficult to conceive. Understand, but I feel it's a bit early. Maybe we can consider it a little later. I mentioned before, there's the age factor for women. If we keep postponing it, it might become even more difficult to conceive. But what about your job? You enjoy the fulfilling work you're doing, right? That's not a problem. My workplace is understanding of such situations and would excuse me from things like business trips during this time. Alright, give me a little more time to think about it, okay? Yes, of course. Take your time to think about it. I didn't intend to rush Maurice, but it seemed that he felt pressured nonetheless, and he started coming home late more frequently, citing work meetings and socializing with colleagues as reasons. Naturally, the time we spent together as a couple decreased, and I felt down thinking that moving to the new apartment for the sake of starting a family seemed meaningless now. However, after a while, Maurice suddenly agreed to undergo testing at the gynecologist's office. I tested too. Well, I'm confident that I am healthy, but if it gives you peace of mind, it's fine. But changed your mind all of a sudden? What's with the attitude? I finally agreed to join you in this, and you're acting like this? I am cooperating with your efforts to conceive. Aren't you happy? Of course I'm happy. Thank you for cooperating. Although his somewhat patronizing attitude bothered me, I decided to go ahead and book the testing appointment at the gynecologist's office, appreciating that Maurice was finally on board. The following month, after completing the tests at the gynecologist's office, we were awaiting our next appointment to discuss the results. I shrieked to my nervousness about the outcome. Maurice seemed quite confident and even attempted to comfort me during the wait. Well, don't get down no matter what the outcome is. Just accept it as fate. Don't say things like that. It just makes me worry even more. I wondered where my husband's confidence, who believed there were no infertility issues on his end, and whose end was coming from. A few days later, despite it being a weekend, my husband had to hastily prepare to go to work due to a call from his boss. As couple, I asked him, is there such a thing as working on weekends at the bank? The loan officer is holding a home loan seminar, but it seems they are short-staffed. It's an important job for the bank, you know. Saying so, he quickly finished his shower and hurriedly left. Just a few minutes after seeing him off, I heard his phone ringing from the bathroom. He has a habit of keeping his smartphone within reach, even when he is showering, so it seems he forgot it there. I picked up his phone and saw the caller ID. The display name was Stella Trading Company. It seemed work-related, but I hesitated to answer on his behalf. As I was contemplating, the call ended. However, because it kept ringing repeatedly, I thought it might be important and decided to apologize for my husband who had forgotten his phone and answered the call. But before he could say hello, the person on the other end started talking. I gave birth. He come to the hospital quickly, caught off guard by the sudden voice of a woman from the other end. I was lost for words. Then, the front door opened with a loud bang, and my husband rushed back into the house. Seeing me with his phone, his face changed color and he froze. At that moment, when our eyes met, I understood everything. This person from Stella Trading Company must be my husband's mistress. and she was reporting the birth of their child. I turned on the speaker on the smartphone. The woman continued to say, "I worked hard to give birth to your child. You must be happy. Please give me a lot of rewards." I silently handed the smartphone to my frozen husband. With trembling hands, he took it and started talking in a strained voice. Hello. Ari, regarding that matter. Hey, it's me. Dello. Oh, yes. Son, is someone there with you? Don't tell me your wife is there. Since I gave birth to the baby, you should divorce her now. You said you don't need a defective wife, didn't you? My husband seemed to be quite flustered, forgetting to turn off the speaker on his phone, and continued to talk to the woman named Stella, while sweating profusely. Please come to the hospital quickly. You have to take care of me from now on, and quickly discard your defective wife. After ending the call with his mistress, my husband stood there, head bowed, holding the phone. I said to my husband, "Is the call from your important person over? You should go to her. There's a valid reason for this. You'll understand if I explain." "What do you want to make me understand?" "Is that you made a child with your mistress?" "I already know." "That's because you're the reason too. It's not just my fault. I'm the reason?" "What do you mean?" "Because you're infertile, and yet you desire a child. That's why I had a child with someone else. I don't want to hear such ridiculous excuses now. Just leave this place quickly and don't ever come back, okay?" "What? This is my house. Don't say whatever you want." I couldn't stand to talk with my self-centered husband anymore and returned to my room. Soon, I heard the sound of my husband leaving, and afterwards, I was left alone, crying until my eyes swelled up. The next day, I had the day off from work, but I couldn't muster the strength to get up in the morning, feeling lethargic and weighed down. My husband, in the end, didn't come home that night. I couldn't help but think he must be spending time with his mistress and their child, and tears started to well up again. At that moment, the ringtone of the phone echoed loudly. Somehow managing to open my heavy eyelids, I picked up the call. It was from the OB-GYN where I had undergone fertility testing, and oh yes, I remembered that today was the day to hear the results of the test. I informed them I would be a bit late and headed out. At this point, it seemed like our fertility tests as a couple didn't matter anymore. However, the results of the test were something unthinkable, and I ended up returning home, my mind swirling in confusion. That day, I contacted my parents, explained the situation, and asked for their help. I decided to move out of this condo unit by the end of the day. I couldn't stand to stay in a house where I had lived with a husband who called me defective, not even for a moment longer. As with my parents' connections, I arranged for movers and junk removal services. After moving out all the belongings, I took a last look at the empty room and murmured to myself, "This is just the beginning. I will show him." The next day, I received an angry call from my husband. Because the house was locked and there was a for sale sign posted. "Kang, what's going on here? I can't get into the house. I've disposed of that place. You don't have a home to return to anymore. What do you mean disposed of? That's my house too. This is not acceptable. Not acceptable, you say? I would like to return those words to you exactly as they are. Thus, when I informed him that I had forwarded his belongings to his parents' house cash on delivery, he seemed at a loss for words. And since his parents live in the same city, explained that the belongings should arrive shortly, and he hastily hung up the phone. Soon after, a call came in from his parents asking for an explanation about the belongings. I told them about my husband's affair, but they seemed unable to believe me right away. They were considerably shaken and said they would also hear the story from their son before hanging up. Presumably, my husband would have to visit his parents to collect his belongings and be forced to explain the situation. I had sold most of the things we bought during our marriage to a junk removal service, so he only had a suitcase worth of belongings. I decided to stay at a nearby business hotel while commuting to work and figuring out the next steps. Later, the divorce negotiations began. Later, under the supervision of our respective lawyers, my husband and I engaged in discussions. My husband insisted that my infertility was the reason for his affair. He said this had led to the breakdown of our marriage and that he had an affair. But now that he had a child with his mistress, he asked me to step aside for the sake of the child. I explained that I was not aware of any marital breakdown and, in fact, was actively engaged in trying to conceive. I asserted that it was my husband who had betrayed me. His lawyer pointed out that I was blaming my husband while ignoring my infertility and that I had wrongfully disposed of the house where the woman and her newborn would return. At that point, I revealed the results of the tests from the EOB-GYN as evidence of our efforts to conceive. The results showed that there was nothing wrong with me, but there were issues with my husband's reproductive abilities. Seeing this, my husband was astonished. No, that's a lie. Because I have a child with Stella, it must be my wife who's infertile, right? It seems you are eager for the test because your mistress got pregnant, right? Well, it worked out, didn't it? You ended up having a child. No way. Stella, that woman, couldn't have. My husband apparently was confident in the results, presuming that I was the one who was infertile since he had conceived a child with his mistress. However, upon seeing the actual test results, he began to doubt whether the child with his mistress was really his. At this point, his lawyer asked him for an explanation, saying the story was different, and my husband was caught off guard, appearing flustered. Moreover, concerning the condo, explained that it's registered under my parents' names, therefore, there's no illegality in disposing of it, and presented the land registry. It seems that my husband had lied about owning the house, and his lawyer wanted to go back to square one, postponing the discussions. My attorney informed me that it was not necessary for us to sit down for negotiations anymore and asked me to leave it up to them. I agreed to do so. Later, the divorce was finalized, and I made my ex-husband pay me a lump sum of $40,000 as compensation and $20,000 to the other woman. According to my lawyer, my ex-husband initially moved back to his parents' home and then back to the company housing, where the mistress turned up with a baby. She used to work as a temporary staff member at my husband's bank, and that's when they started their affair. My ex-husband doubted if the child was his and attempted to check the child's blood type, but the mistress threw a tantrum and refused, forcing him to acknowledge the child ambiguously. Furthermore, the corporate housing was disturbed by the late-night arguments and shouting matches between my ex and the mistress. This reached the ears of the higher-ups at the bank, his workplace, and when called in for clarification, the reasons for the divorce and the extramarital child were revealed. In the conservative banking circle, it seems my ex's prospects of promotion have become dismal, and he spends his days doing simple tasks near the window. The mistress, on the other hand, has been causing troubles one after another, forcing childcare onto other wives in the company housing and borrowing money, causing such a ruckus that she's been sued and even approached my lawyer for consultation. I haven't had a chance to hear further updates from my lawyer, but it seems like they are facing the consequences of their actions. As for me, I reported my divorce at work and was in the process of looking for a rental apartment suitable for a single person when I was asked to consider a position abroad. In fact, they had wanted to offer me a position abroad for a while, but held back knowing I was trying to conceive. I accepted the offer without hesitation, ready to take on a new challenge. Although my marriage ended unhappily, my life still continues. I decided not to be discouraged and to keep moving forward. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment.